Okay, welcome to video 5.2. Here we're going to be talking about solving systems of equations algebraically now. So we've done the graphically. Now we're going to use algebra. So the first method, there's two we'll learn. The first one is the elimination method. So in order to use this, we want both equations in ax plus by equals c form. So actually not in y equals, just having the variables on the left side with the number on the right hand side. And then you need the same number or the same number with different signs. And if you don't have the same one, then you need to use multiplication to get what you want or to get one number to be the same. The next step is to add or subtract to eliminate one of the variables, and then we just solve like normal. And then we solve for the other variable by substituting into the first and check in both solutions. Okay, so that's a lot of steps. Let's do one together to model it. Okay, so I have 2x plus 3y equals 26, and then here I have 5y minus 2x equals 22. Well, the first step was to make sure that they were in ax plus by form. Well, this one has x and then y, but this one is in the wrong order. So before I do anything, I'm just going to rewrite this so that the x is first and the y is second. Okay, so now I'm in the right form. The second step was to make sure that we have the same number in front of one of the variables. Well, if I look here, in front of my x, I have 2 and then negative 2x. Well, that is the same number, 2 and 2. So now I can decide to either add or subtract, and since they're positive and a negative, I'm going to add them together. So to do this, I write a plus sign out front and then add the two equations together. And remember that I'm adding here because the two variables had a different sign in front of them. So 2x plus negative 2x, that will cancel, which is what I want because I can't solve with two variables. So now I can just add everything else, and this is just like what we've done in the past. So I have 3y plus 5y's, that gives me 8y's. And then 26 plus 22, that's 48. And then last step, now I'm going to divide both sides by 8 so I get the y by itself. And when I do that, I get the y value of 6. Well, that's only 1 point. Now I have to take this back. So I've added or subtracted to eliminate one of the variables and solve. Now I need to solve the other variable by substituting it into the first. So I'm going to use the first equation here. It doesn't really matter which. I'm just going to use the first one. So I'm going to rewrite the 2x plus 3y equals 26. And then I need to sub in the 6 in place of y. Now I can simplify by doing 3 times 6, which is 18. So now I get the 2x plus 18 equals 26. Now I can subtract 18 from both sides in order to get the x by itself. And then once I've done that, I get 26 minus 18, which is 8. And then to get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by my 2. And I get my answer, which is x is 4. Now remember that the system of equations, and the solution to them is the point where they intersect. So my solution is x comma y, so 4 comma 6. Okay, so now I've done this, but now I have to do the last step, which is to check in both solutions. Now, we talked about solving if for y and checking in our calculator by graphing, but this time, since we've solved algebraically, we're going to check algebraically as well. So I'm going to sub in the x and y in place of x and y, but you have to check in both equations. So I started off by writing check, and then the equation, the first one, so 2x plus 3y equals 26. Then I substituted in the x and the y, so 2 times 4 plus 3 times 6 equals 26. Then we can go right to our calculator to put all of this in, or we can simplify each step, but when we do that, we get 26 does equal 26, so that's our check for the first one. Now we can't just leave it because that just means that this point for 6 is on this line. But in order to make sure that it's the solution, we have to make sure it's also on the other equation, on the other line. So I do the same thing, and I start with the 5y minus 2x equals 22, then 5 times 6 minus 2 times 4 equals 22, and then we can go right to our calculator and do all of that, or we can put it in, do it in our head, whichever way is fine, and we do get 22 equals 22. So the only thing with the check is be careful not to just assume that it does check. You have to actually do the math to be sure that it checks. Otherwise, it's not really helpful to make sure that your answer is right. Okay, that's it for this video. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.